Hi, my name is Tfcsahzn, and I will be presenting the social perspective. This is Elisa Hakim presenting the scientific perspective. This is Zara Najaf presenting the educational perspective, and this is Tfcsahzn presenting the historical perspective. From The Science of Genius by Dean Keith Simonton, he addresses the implementation of multilingualism in education and its effect in a student's academic development. And from Mapping the Bilingual Brain by Chris Baru, he addresses the different opportunities that enhance academic levels of education. The debate of whether multilingualism affects the American educational system sparked. So from that, from the stimuli, we got the question, which is, to what extent does multilingualism influence the effectiveness of the American educational system?
Scientifically, multilingualism improves cognitive abilities as well as memorization skills, which in turn improves the American education system.
Educationally speaking, multilingualism creates early academic development and increases opportunities to learn other subjects.
Socially, intellectual interactions develop from students that speak different languages.
Historically, multilingualism has impacted students educationally and socially throughout the decades.
After basing off all of our research, our team solution became the idea of the incorporation of effective teaching strategies in multilingual classrooms. According to Barbara and Allison, who has a PhD in human science, she argues that through renewing outdated curriculum and incorporating multilingualism into the American educational system, that it caters to a diverse amount of students, we are able to allow a diversifying society to academically flourish. For example, through peer tutoring, cooperative learning, and hands-on assessment, which allows for students of different languages and different ethnicities to diversify together. Although our team solution has a numerous amount of pros, limitations and implications arise. For example, from her findings, Marsha Al-Raham, who has a PhD in family and child studies, from the implementation of solution factors such as training of inadequate teachers, mentors, financial instability, getting off task during teamwork, all these limitations arise from our solution.
Our alternative solution is the promotion of foreign language education at a young age. According to psychologist Ellen Bialstuk, she states that the basis of educational development begins at a young age. This is shown in the fact that multilingual students have scored higher on literacy tests compared to their monolingual counterparts. In research done by Park and his colleagues, it was found that multilingual children would score higher on IQ tests compared to monolingual children. This shows potential in foreign language education for people with learning deficiencies, because it's been shown that intellect grows as multilingualism does. In psychologist Arendondo's work, data shows a link between multilingualism and frontal lobe development. Attention control showed a significant increase in bilingual students compared to monolingual students. In this graph, you can see that auditory, visual, and full-scale sustained selective attention increase in bilingual students compared to monolingual students. Cognitivity also increases. According to Arredondo, prefrontal cortex development correlates with multilingualism. Learning different languages increases this development of the area, which increases learning ability as well as cognitive ability. This leads to a more accurate task completion. According to Desjardins and Fernandez, they state multilingualism also leads to cognitive growth. Cognitive flexibility relates to accuracy and speed of task completion as well. In this picture, you can see that there is multiple aspects of the brain that bilingualism affects, such as understanding math concepts, increasing reading comprehension, and cultural awareness, as well as logic. And The classic states that there isn't enough research to support the fact that bilingualism is important in schools. But Callan and his colleagues show that there is a growing difference in the learning ability of multilingual students versus monolingual students.
So, according to Amy Jean Nelson, who has a master's degree in education, through the implementation of programs such as ESL programs, multilingual students were able to use different languages to learn. They were able to be exposed to positive amounts of instruction that allows them to grow conceptually while learning other languages and other deviating subjects. In addition to that, Amy Chan, who has a master's degree in international immigration studies and public affairs, states that allowing students to learn in their native language instead of different foreign languages allows them to focus not solely on learning a new language, but it incorporates both of these languages, which gives them new skills and hones them to be able to learn about different subjects in class and not just focus certainly on one subject. As you can see by this graph, is the achievement of English students. This was a study conducted at Stanford University, where in the yellow, students who had 2 or more languages appeared to achieve higher in math and in reading skills. Also, from her findings, Carol Schaffner-Hammer addresses the issues of early development of reading skills in multilingual students. Connecting with her findings, Lee Jen Coy, who is an associate professor of teaching, learning and culture, expresses that increased proficiency occurs from exposure to a vast amount of different vocabulary that multilingual students have, and this shows that percent of public students scoring at the basic level or above in 4th grade reading by English language learner status. So students who are exposed to larger amounts of language have increased their reading scores. And according to Chris Berube, who's a monolinguist, he states that through conducting different standardized tests, he has found that at an early age, implementation of multilingualism has actually increased levels of intelligence and allows for a more developed way of thinking. According to Ellen Biastek, who is a psychologist, she states that multilingual students aren't exactly smarter, but rather have practiced cognitive abilities, increasing their comprehension.
So, interactions among peers allude to more intellectual conversations, according to Jason Snows, a professor of education, and Dirk Gorder, a professor of education as well. Though in the United States, multilingual speakers often have difficulty with being included in certain activities that lessen interaction. According to Virginia Gonzalez, who has an EDD in counseling and consulting, psychology. Programs, though, are there to offer them assistance, and more interactions can develop because of those programs. According to Thomas A. Batchelder, MA in clinical psychology, and Susan Root, who also has a PhD in psychology. Multilingual students have an easier advantage of perceiving information in other languages, according to Virginia Collier, PhD in ESL education, and Wayne Thomas, who has a PhD in evaluation. Though sometimes they might develop a deficiency in English because they speak more than one language, which might not be English, according to Sandy Baum, who has a PhD in economics. And though they don't speak English, it also improves their cognitive skills by mandating tests. Some teachers mandate tests, which also improves their cognitive skills, according to Jason Snows and Dirk Goiter. And here's a graph about the number of languages spoken in 15, the largest cities in America. Here you have New York, who has who has the highest, and Detroit has like the lowest, but they're still high.
Okay, historically, multilingualism has been rising and falling. According to Joseph Piccolo, who is a director for foreign language, in the 19th century is when foreign languages got introduced into schools. But when the 1900s hit, they declined because other programs were more focused on like science and math. So funding to those stopped. An example of this is the West Liberty School District in Iowa, which didn't have foreign languages until 1997. And the first language they introduced was Spanish, but it was because they finally got funding for it. Chinese heritage schools were a type of school that came out in the 1800s. They were some of the schools, heritage schools were some of the schools that many immigrants went to originally because they didn't speak languages or teach them English in normal schools. So they focused on these schools, and according to Nalu, who has a PhD in language education, these schools were really beneficial and they opened the gateway to implementing foreign language programs into regular schools. So normal schools also opened that up. And historically, it benefited social interactions. According to Ingrid Pufall, political leaders oftentimes support these programs because they're beneficial and they've shown that it opens up gateways for multiple things. And research done by Pennsylvania State University found that students who take foreign language programs are more likely to get hired for things and further their career and travel outward into the world. And to conclude, incorporating multilingualism into our education system has affected the American education system through multiple ways, including altering children's prefrontal lobe for attentional control, improving their cognitive abilities, allowing early academic development, and developing intellectual interactions among other students. These effects open gateways to reach full capacity for students and their education.
Okay, the first question goes to Kelly. Describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Originally, our question focused on leadership. We wanted to do something with how the brain worked with leaders, but when we looked at the stimulus more, we didn't find as many correlations compared to where we did with multilingualism. So we decided to change the question in our content focusing on multilingualism instead of leadership.
Okay, second question goes to Tina. How did the group decide to include Zara's perspective lens conclusions into the overall presentation?
Zara's conclusion included visual aids, which was very necessary for our research, and it really clicked with our research, and I think it tied everything together, and yeah.
Zara, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Callie's findings.
So, Callie, in one of Callie's perspectives, there was two things that really changed my way of thinking. When we first were discussing what we were gonna, like, our lenses were and how we were gonna connect them together, for example, she had support from political leaders, and I found that to be very important because it kind of like broadened the scope of how important multilingualism and how the incorporation of different languages will help our team presentation. Also, the implementation of foreign language programs, which I put in mind, but although different programs, different implementations, in mind they were ESL programs, which helped me think thoroughly of educational opportunities that can be implemented into our schools that have the full broad scope of multilingualism itself.
And Elisa, in the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
I
improve our team working skills. We have time management issues, so in the future I would like to better stick to our due dates that we assign to ourselves.